This is The Sports Life.
Give it to Davidson. He'll go up the middle easily and score. Touchdown, Oregon. Touchdown, Jordan Davis.
Back to pass. Blitz comes. Dump down. Fagan. Catch. 35. Running right. 40. Turns upfield. 50. 40. Down the right sideline. 30. 20. Might score. 10. 5. Touchdown. 64 yards. Caden Fagan to the house.
And welcome into the Sports Life. Will Teeman here along with Dalton Shutter. A couple magic moments from last week, courtesy of Jerry Allen from Oregon, as the Ducks go into Happy Valley and pull out a big win. And Illinois bounces back big time against USC after getting kind of shellacked the week before at Indiana, courtesy of Brian Barnhart. Will Teeman here along with Dalton Shutter. And here we are with a brand new week and a brand new set of storylines. And one of them, Dalton, is going to be, we're going to salute a moment in time that connects Michigan State and Nebraska, courtesy of a tragedy.
It's going to be a really special trip down the road to see what unites those two programs, and that story there later on. But also, you mentioned Illinois bouncing back. How about the Illini recentering themselves? We're going to talk with Brian Barnhart, who you just heard from, to get a little bit more of a feel of what's going on with Illinois football. And also, don't look now, but the Terps are rolling there in Maryland, and we're going to have Matt Germack from the Testudo Times joining us to talk about what's working so well with the Terps.
Well, what do we got here for our Sounds of the Week?
Well, you also mentioned, and we heard a little bit of Jerry Allen, the voice of the Oregon Ducks, as Oregon, in double overtime, survives the whiteout at Happy Valley. In double overtime, it started with a touchdown for the Oregon Ducks that went to Gary Bryant Jr. on a pass from Dante Moore, and here's what it sounded like with Jerry Allen.
Way out to the right. Benson goes right. Victorian Moore comes left. And back. And going to throw. Step up away from the rush. Throws it. Got him wide open at the 10. 2-yard line. Touchdown. Gary Bryant Jr. on the first offensive play. And how about Dante Moore escaping the rush?
And he did, and the part that's interesting about this game, Dalton, Oregon was in control of the thing almost the whole way. But somehow Penn State gets 14 points in the fourth quarter to get this thing to overtime. But at the end of the day, the question is, could they finish it?
And they couldn't, thanks to an interception that the Ducks were able to haul in double overtime after that touchdown. And once again, let's hear from Jerry Allen in the final call of that game at Penn State.
Aller going to throw. Steps back. Swings it down. It is intercepted. Oregon pick. Ducks win. Ducks win. Interception by Dylan Thieneman. That means Penn State can't answer the score, and Oregon has ended it with an interception in the second overtime. And they'll win it 30-24.
And what a huge win for the Ducks, because obviously they're in title contention, and they're in contention to go to the college football playoffs. And a win like this is huge.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's a statement-type game. And boy, doesn't it your heart break a little bit on the other side for James Franklin. So close to having one of those big signature wins that somehow just keeps eluding them. But Penn State still has all their hopes in front of them as well throughout the course of this season. Another team that was in a little bit of trouble on the road, the Indiana Hoosiers, after shellacking Illinois, as we talked about, by 50, 60 points, they found themselves in trouble at Kinnick Stadium, where great teams go to die. Somehow the Hoosiers survive with this game-winning touchdown pass, as called by the voice of Indiana, Don Fisher.
Here's the snap. Here's the throw. Catch is made. And a break! Down the middle of the field goes Surratt. Touchdown! And Indiana scores a 49-yard pass play and a break by Elijah Surratt that broke a tackle, and he takes it into the end zone.
That was a huge win for Indiana. Great teams go there to die.
That's Kinnick Stadium. It's just a graveyard for good football teams.
Well, that was a big win for the Hoosiers, and they're just, I think everybody was going, okay, last year was maybe a fluke, and the schedule was just right, and they were just good enough. Well, they look like maybe they weren't a fluke, and they're still pretty good.
Well, and it's amazing, too, because so many pieces are different, right? We gave so much credit to Curtis O'Rourke last year, like as ex-quarterback. That's where so much of the success was. Then you insert Fernando Mendoza, and all of a sudden, you're seeing the same type of results. It might be something with this Curt Cignetti character. We'll just have to Google him and find out.
You know he wins.
We've heard. We've heard. Well, besides that, we mentioned Illinois gets back in the right spot with a bounce-back win against USC. We're going to hear from head coach Bret Bielema in just a moment. But first, let's go to the finish of that game because it was another game-winning drive by the Illini, something they've been pretty accustomed to in the last few years. But this time it ends on the foot of Illinois kicker Alano, who splits the uprights right here. Here's the call with Brian Barnhart.
The snap, the hold, the kick, in the air, end over end, and it's good! It is good! Victory, Illinois! David Alano being mobbed by his teammates. The Illini win it 34-32.
Well, you kick a game-winning field goal with no time left. That's not a bad way to do it, but at the end of the day, you got to believe, at least you get the feeling like this Illinois football team it's sort of the real deal. It may not be as good as Ohio State or Oregon or Penn State, but they're pretty good.
And I have a hard time at this point doubting what Bret Bielema churns out there in Champaign. It's hard to doubt what he's been able to build in the early goings. And this was, yet again, another one of those wins for Bret Bielema that able to reflect upon and think about what he's been able to build at Illinois. And, of course, Bielema's also just become a walking soundbite anytime he takes the podium there in Champaign. But here's what he had to say this past week about the win and his conversations with athletic director Josh Whitman.
I tell Josh all the time he's getting a good bargain, right? Like I'd say that because there's one area that I think I've dramatically improved. It's how to win games. And when I was in the NFL, there's a very big stat about one possession games in the NFL is even way higher than college football, right? And so you really had to get good at those end of half, end of game, situational football things. So I think if you asked our guys, we practice them a lot. We take a lot of pride in it as coaches. I think you would ask my coaches, I demand a lot of them in those areas. And players take a lot of pride in it. I think Luke's a walking example of it. I had no idea it was that many. My wife always gives me a hard time after the game. Like she, on the field Saturday, she's like, oh my God, like that game, right? And I kind of think she does that every game, but I realize that she's done it a lot because it's happened a lot, right? That's 15 games, in a 3-year window that are decided by one score. That's a lot of games, and fortunately we've been able to come out on top of that, but it doesn't happen by chance. Our guys do a really good job of preparing.
Bret Bielema, the head coach at Illinois. Me and you talked about this when they hired him as the head coach. He's an Illini native. He's from the state. He's changed. He got humbled. I think he's more grounded. And you never know until you know, but I just think they made the perfect hire.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right, and the success kind of speaks for itself, right? Illinois football, that program is seeing some really neat things that it hasn't necessarily seen throughout all of history under Bret Bielema. But how about that for the stat? 15 games decided by one possession for Illinois in the last few years. I think every coach would like to know what's the secret to winning those, because Bret Bielema says there is a formula that they work on behind closed doors, but that's something that would be pretty useful to a lot of people.
Well, don't make mistakes.
That's right.
That'll be a good one.
Turnovers, right?
And they're trying to get into the double-digit win column for the second straight year, which has never, ever happened before. Hey, don't forget auto owners insurance, simple human sense. Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you. Well, when Dalton and I come back with more of the Sports Life, we're going to talk about Illinois football in just a moment.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender?
How little?
A few days in the shop little. But thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
Every kid deserves a chance to feel safe, to have their own bed, to be loved and cared for. That's why I love my foster parents. They make me feel like part of the family.
Raise hope and foster dreams for one of 13,000 Michigan children in foster care. Visit michigan.gov/hope for a home or call 855-MICH-KIDS. That's 855-MICH-KIDS. Sponsored by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and the Michigan Association of Broadcasters.
Do you hear that? That's the sound of uncertainty lurking under your hood. You know the feeling. I know I do. That sudden sinking sensation when you see a check engine light or your car unexpectedly breaks down and you're faced with sky-high repair bills. It's time to shield against unexpected repairs with CarShield. CarShield is America's most trusted auto protection company and has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. Don't let the fear of a breakdown keep you up at night. Trust the Shield, CarShield, and say goodbye to terrifying repair bills and hello to peace of mind. Your plan also comes with 24/7 roadside assistance, courtesy towing, rental car options, and so much more. Don't wait till it's too late. Call CarShield now before a breakdown. Protect your wallet. Protect your car with CarShield. Get our best protection ever. Call now. You'll thank me later. 800-965-1292. 800-965-1292. That's 800-965-1292.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Roxanne Watson is on a mission.
Hello, how are you doing today?
She wants more people to register as organ, eye, and tissue donors.
Are you an organ donor? Yes, I am.
Yay.
My goal is to sign up the most people in the United States.
What drives her? Roxanne's own life was saved through the gift of a heart transplant, made possible by an organ donor.
I decided that day that I was going to devote myself to the cause of organ donation and signing people up and honoring my donor by doing that.
Now she's back to health, and she's a powerful force helping to save lives every day through her work. Imagine what you can make possible by leaving behind the gift of life.
8 people can be helped with the major organs, and up to 50 people can be helped with a little bit of everything. And when you think about it that way, that you could help that many people, it's amazing. It really is.
Learn more and sign up as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. Go to organdonor.gov. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Team here along with Dalton Sadler. Well, it's always interesting to see how a football season starts compared to what the preseason thoughts are. But one of the thoughts about the Illinois football team this year was it was going to be really, really good. And at one point it was a top 10 team enrolling, and then it went to Indiana and the wheels came off a little bit, and then made a marvelous comeback and a big win against Southern Cal last week. So to talk about this top 25 team is the voice of Illini Brian Barnhart. And Brian, can you just give us a little thumbnail of the mood going on? You're rolling pretty good. And then Indiana just takes you apart. And what a great comeback against Southern Cal. So what do you think you really have going on down there right now?
Yeah, well, it's good to be on with you guys, and thanks, Will. And, yeah, it was, they were forecasted to be a really good team, potential playoff team. I think they still are. It was funny because Brett Bielema, mentioned after the Indiana loss, he said, I had a good team going to Bloomington, and I still think I have a really good team. And then they worked really hard during the week, and as you said, able to beat USC on the last-second field goal. And really, with USC, the game with USC, Illinois had 2 fumbles inside the 5-yard line. They were going in for scores twice. So that, they may not have needed to come down to a last-second field goal by David Alano, but it certainly did. But, yeah, that was an impressive bounce back. But this is just a really solid team, a really good quarterback. Luke Altmaier has, I think, 11 touchdowns now and no interceptions. I can count on one hand in the last year and a half that he's actually thrown the ball that you kind of held your breath on. I mean, he's been so efficient. He can pull it down and run it if he needs to. He elevates the play of his receivers. And so overall, it's not a flashy team, but it's just a really solid team that kind of resembles their coach, Brett Bielema, and they don't do a lot to beat themselves. And the excitement in town is off the charts. I mean, even with the Indiana loss, Fox came in for their noon kickoff. That place Grange Grove was jammed at 7 a.m. with people wanting to get in. And they didn't get to leave till the very end of the game. They stayed till the end last week. So this place is pretty supercharged right now about football.
Well, and, I mean, we've referenced a couple of times the tough loss against Indiana, but programs shouldn't be necessarily defined by maybe the lowest moment like what that was. But when you talk about what we've seen success-wise with Brett Bielema in Illinois, for a bounce back, as you put it, Brian, in that win over USC, to see it stabilize the way it did and to see that bounce back, what is that a credit to? Is it a credit to the culture Bielema's built? Is it a credit to Brett Bielema himself? Is it a myriad of things? What does it tell you about this program?
Yeah, well, I think, Dalton, it's all of the above, frankly. I mean, he built this, he came in, he and Josh Whitman, when he came in 5 years ago, talked about sustained success. That's just something we hadn't had at Illinois very often. We had a lot of, an occasional Rose Bowl or Sugar Bowl or whatever, and then it would fall back to, down to a 500 or worse record, in some years winning 1 or 2, 3 games. So the consistency wasn't there. And so he's just very steadily, I think he had a vision of where he wanted to take it. He had the new chance in college football after getting fired at Arkansas, after he left Wisconsin and working in the NFL. And he picked up a few things from Bill Belichick when he worked for him with the Patriots. And he just kind of merged all of that into how he wanted to run a college football program if he got the chance again, and he did, and he's done it. And I had every confidence that even after what happened at Indiana, which was jarring in its own right because under Brett Bielema, we've rarely had a game like that. Illinois has been in a ton of close games, win or lose, and so to just get blown out like that was just really something really unusual to see. You've come to expect a higher standard from his team. And then what they did during the course of the week preparing for USC, wanting to basically burn the tape and forget about it, but also learn from it. And the combination of the two, and they, people have told me that follow the game, that understand it a lot better. It looked like they said they simplified things up front, and they just had a much better attack against USC, running it at the Trojans, especially late when they drove for the game-winning field goal. So I think it's a real credit to the staff and the way they handle things. He's got a great staff around him. He's got continuity with Barry Lunney and Aaron Henry as the defensive and offensive coordinators. And so they're among the longest tenured in the Big Ten, believe it or not. And so I think that consistency and that stability, it just lends itself to the result that you got last week after a really, frankly, a disaster over there at Indiana.
Well, Brian, with such great expectations, in terms of the fan base, what are they really expecting this team to be at the end? I mean, is there a sort of a plateau they've set for them, and if you don't get there, they'll be disappointed?
Well, I think the expectations, and this built over the spring and summer, Will, when they beat South Carolina in the bowl game. I mean, beating an SEC team of that caliber, who was considered an outside shot at the playoffs last year, to do that just created a buzz in season ticket sales. And, the students, I think they sold 10 or 11,000 student season tickets, which is just unheard of, in history for Illinois for that. And so that's been a buzz. I think the expectations rose considerably as we got closer to the start of the season. And then with those 3 wins, of course, it got really high. The team was ranked, 8th or 9th, I guess, depending on which poll you were in. I think a lot of fans were in the unusual situation of saying, man, if we only go 8-4, that might be kind of disappointing. I mean, that's how high it had reached. And they've still got some hurdles to clear, including the Purdue game this week, and then Ohio State's coming in on the 11th here to Champaign. So, and then they still got to go to Washington yet. So they've still got some hurdles to clear. But I think as the season goes on, if they can be in contention for a potential playoff spot, if they can do that, obviously that would create a lot of excitement. But even having an 8-9 win season, they've never had back-to-back, I don't think, 10-win seasons. That would be really something to a great accomplishment, regardless of how it shakes out. But and you know the area pretty well, Will. I mean, basketball here in Illinois, the fans are much more demanding. I mean, you better win 20 games. You better be in the NCAA tournament. Football, they've been a little more forgiving over the years. But when football is going good, this place just pops with excitement. I mean, they fall in love with the football team really fast if it's a good one. And they've got a really good one, so they're in love with them right now.
Well, and I think even neutral fans can fall in love with Luke Altmaier. I mean, you talked about him earlier, the efficiency, the accuracy, it's off the charts. And he was named Big Ten Co-Offensive Player of the Week this past week. He engineered his 6th game-winning drive in the final minute of the last 3 seasons, the 6-1 in the last 3 years. That's the best in the country. And he became the first Big Ten player to get a rushing touchdown, passing touchdown, and receiving touchdown in a Big Ten game since 2011. This guy just seems like a gamer and an all-around football player. What can you tell us about Luke Altmaier that makes him so special?
Well, he's just he's grown a lot in 2 years. When he first came, I don't think he quite had the same confidence. He may have inwardly had it, but you didn't see it. And when you think about it, I think he's a captain this year for the first time. It just shows you how much he's grown, how much his teammates have come to respect him, and his voice and how confident he is, and his leadership on and off the field. He's grown into the role of a big-time Big Ten quarterback, and I think his guys feed off of that. I think we see Pat Bryant playing with the Broncos these days. I mean, I think he really elevated his level of play. They helped each other, and I think he's doing the same for guys like Hank Beatty and Colin Dixon and other receivers on this team, because if you're out there, and I've never been a receiver, but I'm guessing if you run a route and you want that quarterback to put it right where it needs to be, Luke can do that. And I think that just, it just builds on itself day by day in practice and in games, the confidence that they have in him and he in them. And Brett Bielema mentioned it after the game the other day. He said, hey, when Luke gave me that nod going out there with 1:50 to go in the game and down a point, that he can get us down the field. And that's all I needed to see, just the nod of his head that I'm ready, we'll get it done. And that's he's just really confident and really good at what he does right now.
Well, Brian, you got Purdue in West Lafayette coming up this weekend. Then you host Ohio State. Then you go to Washington. You get Rutgers and Maryland at home. Maryland, a surprise team at the moment. Then you go to Wisconsin. Then you host Northwestern to wrap it up. To get through this end of the schedule to be where you want to be, is there a key to this Illinois team, something they've just got to do?
Well, I think the one thing they've got to do a little bit, they've got to get healthy defensively. They are banged up in the secondary. And, with Ohio State coming in, I know Ryan Brown, ran for like 150 yards on us last year, the Purdue quarterback, in that wild game. So they've got to be healthy on the back end. I think that's the big thing. They're not going to have Xavier Scott, probably not even until a bowl game, it looks like, based on what we're hearing. So they've got to step up in that end of things, and they've got to get their running game a little more consistent. With that, the ceiling's pretty high. If they struggle in those two areas, that's probably the difference between losing 1 or 2 games and losing 3 or 4, in my mind.
Well, as always, appreciate the visit, Brian. Good luck the rest of the way.
All right, thanks. Good to talk to you guys.
A nice visit with the voice of the Fighting Illini, Brian Barnhart. Well, when we come back with more of the Sports Life, we're going to talk about a special moment in the Big Ten. It affects Michigan State and Nebraska. It's all coming up in just a moment.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
Here's a real-life story that affects 50% of all of us out there. It's called divorce. If you've gotten divorced and now you're struggling to pay your bills and your credit card debts are completely out of control, you need to call this special debt relief hotline right now. We help people with all kinds of money problems caused by different life challenges, a divorce, a job loss, even heavy medical bills. All these life events can sometimes financially stress you out and cause you to get out of control. We help people get their lives back by showing them ways to consolidate and reduce their debt, in some cases for a fraction of what they owe. If your credit card balances are more than $10,000, call us and learn how to reduce your credit card bills and monthly payments now. Here's our number.
Paid for by Debt.com. Call now, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584. That's 800-810-1584.
That ought to do it. Totally energy efficient.
Oh no, not again. This time, we're getting help.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the battle of energy efficiency improvements. In this corner, Mr. I can save money and do it on my own. And in this corner, Miss Let's Get It Done Right with some help. Fight! Or you could just go to avoidenergydrama.com. From sealing your home to helpful loan options, you'll find all the tips and tools you need to stop wasting energy and stay comfortable. Avoidenergydrama.com. Brought to you by Michigan Saves.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Unlike other health concerns, mental illness is not always easy to see. Depression won't show up on an eye chart, and you can't measure it on your bathroom scale. Sorting out a mental health concern is not something to attempt on your own. You won't find a bipolar disorder by looking at a thermometer. Like many other health conditions, help for mental illness takes professional diagnosis and treatment. Anxiety won't just go away under a stick-on bandage. So the sooner you seek treatment, the better. If you or a loved one has a mental health concern, don't go it alone. Find out what to do. For 24-hour free and confidential information and treatment referral, call 1-800-662-HELP. Learn more at samhsa.gov/support. That's samhsa.gov/support.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Team and here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, today's cover story is one that deals with shock, with personal devastation, the coming together of people and institutions, and a celebration of life, all due to a tragic accident on July 23rd, 2016.
Certainly a pall over these media days as two Big Ten student athletes, one current and one former, were killed in an accident very late on Saturday night in Wisconsin. The two athletes, Nebraska punter Sam Foltz, along with former Michigan State punter Mike Sadler, they were riding in a car that was being driven by Sadler. They had been attending a kicking camp in Wisconsin. There was a bad storm. The car skidded off the road and hit a tree. Both Sadler and Foltz were killed.
That was Dave Refson, as the Big Ten Network was beginning its coverage of the 2016 Big Ten Media Days with that somber announcement. With the passing of Michael Sadler of Michigan State, a two-time All-American punter, and Sam Foltz from the University of Nebraska, the reigning Big Ten Punter of the Year, an instant bond was formed between the two universities. We are reminded of this moment in time as this weekend, Michigan State will visit Lincoln to play Nebraska. Aside from being outstanding punters, Michael Sadler, who was 24 and getting ready to attend Stanford Law School, and Sam Foltz, age 22, who was getting ready for his final season with his Cornhuskers, were both larger-than-life individuals, which prompted this reaction from then Big Ten Commissioner Jim Delaney and then Executive Director of the College Football Playoffs, Bill Hancock, at the 2016 Big Ten Media Days.
Before I get started in my comments, it's incumbent upon me to simply mention that the obvious, life is fragile. We lost Sam and Mike this week. Major loss of life has impacted everybody. Each one of our conferences, we met yesterday with our athletic directors and faculty and coaches. And so it's on everybody's minds. It's on my mind. And I just want to be clear that hearts are broken and our prayers and thoughts are with Mike and Sam and their families.
First of all, I want to offer our condolences to Nebraska and Michigan State, and also to the families of Sam and Mike. From what I know, have heard of them, each of those young men represent the sons that all of us always wanted. I want to talk just a minute about that. From personal experience, I know that those families have a long road ahead of them, and I'm heartbroken for them. But what I have heard about them, I know that they will face the journey with determination and grace and faith. I personally know that their path will include many ups and downs, but waiting at the end of that path for them is a miracle of joy and hope. I know that joy and hope is many months and possibly years away for them. But what is ahead for them is a time when college football will matter again, when they will need the game that Sam and Mike loved so much. And I hope for them that time will arrive as soon as possible.
Dan Vanderreet, who was Michigan State's football chief of staff, was on the Nebraska football staff in 2015 as an associate athletic director. And he remembers how the news of Sam Foltz passing affected the Cornhusker football program and the community.
It was devastating. Sam was larger than life. He wasn't just an all-star, all-league punter. He was so involved in the community, so involved with everyone on the team, so involved in all the things that the athletic department, university provide outside of athletics. Really engaged, and so when we found the news, it was devastating. It wasn't just for a couple players or this, that, the other that he's involved with on the team. He embodied the team. He was friends with everyone, had relationships with everyone, and it was horrible.
Karen Sadler, Michael's mother, reflecting on the outpouring of support.
Well, everyone was very gracious, very sympathetic. It was everything was kind of a blur back then, Will, but everyone was very kind to us, and we appreciated that, especially then. But people wanted to do whatever they could, and the Big Ten reached out with the idea of doing a commemorative coin that would be used as a coin toss before games. And so they had an idea, they had an image, they had a prototype, and they reached out to us, and they reached out to the Foltz family to get approval to go ahead with that idea and then to use the artwork that they had created. And I don't know if you've seen it, but the coin is beautiful. And we really appreciated that from the Big Ten.
The commemorative coin that Karen mentioned was used that year at the Big Ten Championship game. Then in 2018, Michigan State and Nebraska met in Lincoln.
They wanted the families to be together, and they wanted to do something special out on the field in Nebraska. So Michigan State invited my daughter Katie and me to fly out with the team, and they put us up overnight, and we were just so thankful for the opportunity. We were met by the Foltz family when we got there, and we went over to University of Nebraska. We went out, the athletic director met us when we got there, took us out on the field, explained what was going to be happening in the next day. And nobody could have been nicer. Everyone was very welcoming, very gracious. So the next day, I think it was a noon start game, and it was cold. It was really cold. But we were all bundled up, and we got out there on the field, and it was just before the game began, and they had laid roses down at the 3 and the 6, right? And they brought the players who had been warming up out on the field all over to a huddle in the center of the field with me and Katie and the Foltz family, and both coaches said a few words. They both had gifts to exchange with the families, beautiful gifts. I think one was a Waterford cross that Coach D gave to both families. And the players the players were out there, and they came one by one right down the line, and just said, this game's for Sam and Mike. It's for Sam and Mike. And they played it that way. It turned out to be a game of specialists with only field goals being the score, right? I mean, I think it was we had 2 field goals, and I think they had 3. And so it was a 6-9 game, but those were the only scores, and I do think our boys had something to do with that.
Michael Sadler was not only an All-American punter, but he was a king of trick plays, like this one against Iowa in 2013. The play was called Hey Diddle Diddle, Send Sadler Up the Middle.
Mike Sadler with his 5th punt of the ball game. Riley McCarron deep for Iowa. Oh, it's a fake. Mike Sadler running to his right. He's got some green grass in front of him. He's into Iowa territory, and he's out of bounds across the way with a first down and then some, folks. Nico Law knocked him out of bounds. Mike Sadler continues to do great things for the Spartans.
And as it would turn out, that was a key play in leading MSU to a 26-14 win over Iowa. Again, Dan Vanderreet on how this tragedy brought people together.
I hate to say it, but when tragedy happens, it brings us together. And whether it's in my personal family or yours, when someone passes or something like that happens, it seems like it takes that sometimes to get us all together. But the uniqueness of these 2 individuals that really ended up, as you learn about their lives and beyond football, were larger than life on their campuses for what they did in the community and the impact they had. And so being able to honor them and their legacies and bringing the schools together in that way, just got to keep that going.
And the creation of the Michael Sadler Foundation is doing just that, as Karen Sadler explains.
Well, when we lost Mike, we wanted to do something to keep his memory alive. And it took us a while to figure out what that should be. But as we drove across the state of Michigan and especially around Michigan State, we saw all the billboards that people had gratuitously put up that had his picture and the words "inspire character." And it was finally through those billboards that we gleaned where we needed to go with the foundation in his name. And that was the fact that he had created a legacy that impacted people all across the country. And so that's what our foundation really focuses on. We do scholarships and things like that, but the heart of our work and impact is in helping kids create their legacies to be meaningful.
Back with more of the Sports Life in just a moment.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender.
How little?
A few days in the shop little. But thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto Owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask.
Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners makes sense for you.
So I graduated last year and got a job. Sweet! But it got boring. I didn't really have a purpose. Then I started volunteering with Community Action. It's a statewide network with 29 agencies across Michigan. Community Action helps people with food, housing, utilities, childcare, senior services, you name it. I found my purpose, helping people, changing lives. Won't you join me? Call 1-855-MI-ACTION or go to MichiganCommunityAction.org. Sponsored by Michigan Community Action and Michigan Association of Broadcasters.
This is a potter's field. When people can't pay for their funerals, they are buried here. It is a lonely, desolate place, littered with unmarked headstones. No one visits. No one leaves flowers. But it doesn't have to be that way. For as low as $1 a day, you can ensure your family will have the money to pay your funeral expenses. We offer burial insurance plans that pay up to $30,000. Considering the average funeral costs more than $10,000, that's peace of mind for your family. There are no medical exams, your rates won't increase, and your policy cannot be canceled as long as you make your premium payments. Call now to get approved in minutes and ensure your final resting place is more than just a pauper's grave in a potter's field.
800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. That's 800-562-2407. Paid for by Final Expense Direct.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
Alex is just...
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, if there has been a surprise so far in the Big Ten, it has got to be the Maryland football team. Not that they started off fast, because they've done that before, but they've had this tendency in recent times to sort of fade a little bit during Big Ten play. Well, they got through the non-conference in great shape. Then they went to Madison, where not a lot of people have won. They took care of the Badgers 27-10, and here we sit, heading into another game coming up for the Terps, and they have yet to lose a game. So what is going on with these guys? Well, we've asked Matt Germack from Testudo Times to join us. And Matt, thanks for joining the show. What has happened to this Maryland football team? I'm beginning to think they might be the real deal.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Well, first of all, with this team, you can't talk about Maryland football without talking about Malik Washington, a freshman quarterback, kind of a local hero. Turned an Archbishop Spalding High School program that was one of the better programs in Maryland before he got there, but he turned them into a national powerhouse. He was a 4-star recruit, very high riser, came to Maryland with a mission to really rebuild, his state school. That was his stated purpose. He's made it very clear, even before he stepped on campus, that was what he wanted to do, and it looks like he's done just that. ESPN called him the number one freshman quarterback in the country. He's played so far above anyone's expectations for him, and I think a lot of people in the program had really high expectations for him as a freshman. And it's been improvement across the board, improvement that we didn't necessarily expect. Michigan State fans will remember last year when Aiden Childs looked maybe the best he's ever looked at Michigan State against Maryland, mainly due to just how bad the defense was last year. There's no better way to put it. That defense has been not even necessarily overhauled, but the guys that were there last year, especially in the secondary, have gotten so much better. There were a lot of true freshmen starting. Michigan State fans might remember Kevin Humes, who was one-on-one with Nick Marsh for much of that game, and Nick Marsh, I believe, had upwards of 180 receiving yards. He's moved into the slot. He's been one of Maryland's best defenders this year, now in his sophomore season. Also, 2 freshman edge rushers who have really just become one of the best stories in college football, Sidney Stewart and Zahir Mathis. Neither of them were particularly highly touted recruits. Sidney Stewart was a 3-star recruit. Zahir Mathis was a 4-star. You don't see edge rushers come in as freshmen and make big splashes very often. You expect it from guys like Dylan Stewart, Jadeveon Clowney, the really, really highly touted recruits. But these two have had combined 6.5 sacks, combined 11 tackles for loss in these first 4 games. And going into Wisconsin, we thought that may have been just a product of the opponents they were playing. But you got to Camp Randall. It's a loud stadium. It's a big environment against by far Maryland's best opponent yet. The very first drive of the game, Zahir Mathis blocks a field goal. Second drive of the game, Sidney Stewart has a really crucial sack on Danny O'Neal. It was probably both of their best games. There's so much talent that I don't think many outside the program were expecting from the team this year. And, Wisconsin, we don't know how Wisconsin will turn out as the year goes on. I know a lot of Wisconsin fans are calling for Luke Fickell's head right now. That may have been more of a product of Wisconsin than Maryland, but for what it's worth, I don't think Maryland even looked like they pulled off an upset at Wisconsin. They looked like the far better team, which is something that no one was expecting going into that game.
Well, and Matt, you've sung the praises of Malik Washington as a freshman quarterback, and it's interesting because as you talk about narratives, I think one was put together about Maryland football under Mike Locksley that the success was all to Taulia Tagovailoa. Not so much Mike Locksley, and kind of the sports fan like divvying up credit and giving it to one person like sports fans often do. But now that you see Malik Washington come in as a freshman and emerge the way he has, is maybe there a new narrative on the brink of maybe Mike Locksley's a bit of a quarterback whisperer?
I don't think maybe necessarily a quarterback whisperer. They brought in Pep Hamilton as offensive coordinator. I think he's had a massive impact on Malik Washington. Obviously, Pep Hamilton's had a lot of success with quarterbacks in the past, most namely Andrew Luck over the 5 or 6 years he spent with him. But I think Locksley deserves a lot more credit than he gets as a recruiter and a culture builder. I think he had a vision for this program that not a lot of people outside the program really gave credit to, as far as building up the local recruiting ties. The DMV is such a hotbed for high school recruiting. There's so many guys that Maryland's in the fight for, but just, comes just short of getting those big names from their backyard. I mean, talk about guys like Caleb Williams, Dylan Stewart, I mentioned earlier, was from Washington, D.C. Guys that Maryland's been in on but just hasn't been able to pull off. It really looks like Locksley's vision is coming to manifest this year. We see a lot. I mean, Maryland has one of the most productive freshman classes in the country, which is something you don't expect from a school like Maryland. And with number 2 player in the country next season, our next recruiting class, Zion Ely, is committed to Maryland. It doesn't sound like he's going anywhere. He's said he's shut down his recruitment. That's not a flip play like someone like Jordan Seaton, who really used Maryland as leverage for to go to Colorado. I think Locksley deserves a lot more credit as a culture builder and a recruiter than he gets. There were a lot of calls for him to be fired over the last few years, I think, just because people didn't see what he was building. And I think this year people are finally starting to see that. You see a really close-knit locker room. Our press conference yesterday with the team, we had Octavian Smith Jr., wide receiver, talk about the brothers keeper culture that he's created and a lot of traditions within the locker room that he's created to really bring that team together, which is just so important at the college level. I think he deserves a lot more credit than he gets, but it's because of the recruiting aspect more than the quarterback aspect. But he also deserves a lot of credit for bringing in Pep Hamilton and being one of the more well-connected coaches in the country. He got one of the bigger names that people know as a coach as offensive coordinator, and then Ted Monachino has been a phenomenal defensive coordinator this season. They brought him in. He was North Carolina's defensive line coach. He's popped around at both the NFL and college levels for a while. I think Locksley deserves a lot of credit for building that up.
Well, Matt, another group that probably deserves some credit. You talked about him building culture. You've talked about all the young players that played last season for Maryland. The administration, they should get some credit, too, for buying into the vision and staying with him, because that is, as you know, that is not happening everywhere.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because Maryland's athletic director actually left this past offseason for SMU following a pretty tumultuous March Madness run. Diehard college basketball fans might remember the Kevin Willard saga, where Maryland made it to the Sweet 16, and the story leading up to Maryland making the Sweet 16 wasn't their phenomenal starting lineup or Derek Queen's buzzer beater against Colorado State. It was whether Kevin Willard was going to leave for Villanova or not. And Damon Evans, the athletic director, ended up also leaving in that saga. But in came Jim Smith, who's Maryland's new athletic director, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for the revenue building that he's already kind of showing at Maryland with in the new revenue share era. he has a long history of doing that. He worked with Arthur Blank's sports group for a while. He was one of the main architects or the visionaries behind Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which is the Falcons' massive complex down in Atlanta, which isn't just a football facility. It's a year-round 24/7 event center. He was also one of the visionaries behind Atlanta's MLS team, which he helped create. That's already kind of been shown. I think he's developed a lot of goodwill with the fan base. Another big problem with Maryland has been, even with this success, there just hasn't been a lot of fanfare. The stadium you see a lot of pictures of an empty Secu Stadium, even when Maryland's good. And I think Jim Smith's doing a phenomenal job at bringing in revenue and then bringing in the fans to back a team that looks like it's on the up and up.
Well, there's no doubt this team is that on the up and up, but one game at a time, as we always say, right? So up next is Washington. So what do the Terps have to do to keep this thing going?
Yeah, well, Maryland fans will know really well the moniker September Maryland. Maryland is 19-3 in the month of September since 2021, and I believe 12-21 after that since 2021. Washington is definitely going to be the best opponent Maryland has faced so far this year. Jonah Coleman being one of the best running backs in the league. I think this is going to be a really good test of Maryland's defense to see if they can slow down the run, attack Washington at what its game plan is, force them to play left-handed. And, the offense just has to play complementary football. But I don't think anyone was expecting Maryland to be able to put up the points that it has so far this year. The defense, people thought if Maryland was going to come anywhere close to a bowl game, which I certainly didn't think they were going to this year, but now they're only 2 wins away from that. It was going to have to be the defense carrying them, and I think this is going to be the best test.
Well, Matt, good luck with that one, because all these games one at a time, but you got Washington, then you're hosting Nebraska, then you're going to UCLA, so I'm guessing you're going to be favored in all three of those. So appreciate the chat. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So there you go, some of the thoughts of Matt Germack from the Testudo Times, talking about the surprise team maybe in the Big Ten so far, Maryland. Well, when we come back with more of the Sports Life, our parting shots in just a moment.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
So I graduated last year and got a job. Sweet! But it got boring. I didn't really have a purpose. Then I started volunteering with Community Action. It's a statewide network with 29 agencies across Michigan. Community Action helps people with food, housing, utilities, childcare, senior services, you name it. I found my purpose, helping people, changing lives. Won't you join me? Call 1-855-MI-ACTION or go to MichiganCommunityAction.org. Sponsored by Michigan Community Action and Michigan Association of Broadcasters.
If you have diabetes, listen up. If you have insurance, you can qualify for a continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends and spend more time in range, significantly lowering your A1C. More importantly, a CGM eliminates the one thing most people with diabetes hate: painful finger sticks. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you use insulin and if you've seen your diabetes care provider within the last 6 months, you may qualify for your own CGM right now. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances will cover your CGM, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call the Aptiva Medical CGM Health Hotline right now.
800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. That's 800-948-6912.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is the Sports Life.
Anybody ready for a burger?
I'm State Fire Marshal Rich Miller, reminding everyone to think safety first when it comes to outdoor grilling, whether it's charcoal or gas. Never overload your grill with food. Excess fat and grease will create large flames. Grill outdoors and never inside or in a garage. Never leave a grill unattended and always keep a fire extinguisher nearby. For more tips on safe grilling, visit the Bureau of Fire Services website at michigan.gov/BFS.
Medicaid and CHIP offer free or low-cost health coverage for children and teens. Hospital and doctor visits, prescriptions, shots, and more are covered. That's peace of mind for parents if a child is sick or gets injured. And parents may now be eligible for Medicaid too, even if they've applied in the past. Enrollment is always open. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 1-877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Teeman here along with Dalton Shetler. And we have now worked our way to our parting shots as we have taken a look at Maryland and Illinois. And what are some of those great highlights from last week? There are some big moments already. And the touching story about what binds Michigan State and Nebraska football. So, with that, what do you got for parting shots?
Well, for my parting shot, I wanted to really take a look at the Big Ten Conference as a whole because, look, it feels like every year we have the classic debate of which conference is better? Is it the Big Ten? Is it the SEC when it comes to football? And for a long period of time, the SEC, it feels like kind of had the edge, and I think that's fair to say. Of course, the Big Ten, though, does have the last two national champions in Ohio State and Michigan. But when you look this year at what the Big Ten's been able to do, with Ohio State number one in the country and a big win to kick off the year against maybe the best team out of the SEC, Texas. That's as far as we have evidence, they are the best SEC team right now. Second ranked is Oregon. You also have Penn State 7, Indiana 8. So half of the top 8 in the country reside in the Big Ten Conference. And I think that's one of those things, Will, we're also seeing, besides the top perform at such a high level from the Big Ten Conference, the middle of the pack of the Big Ten feels like this year in particular has gotten a tick up in improvement. When you look across at teams like Maryland, who we talked about earlier today, when you look at teams like Washington, when you look at Iowa, to give Indiana a game like that, the middle of the pack has elevated its game as well. And I think this year, without a shadow of a doubt, as of right now, I would say the Big Ten is the best conference in the country. I think you'd have a hard time arguing that, even if you're an SEC defendant.
Well, I'm not, so I won't. How about that? I agree with you, though. I always kind of look at this time of the year as we get ready. We're approaching the halfway point. But some things haven't changed. Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State are still the big three.
Yep.
But you mentioned the middle of the pack. What is going on with Maryland? 4-0. Washington, a total rebuild last year, 3-1. And maybe the biggest surprise, though, is UCLA.
Oh, in the other way.
I mean, they're 0-4 right now. They keep firing coaches. And nobody thought they were going to win the Big Ten, but I don't think anybody thought this was going to happen. At the end of the day, you never know, and that's what they always say, Dalton. That's why you play the game.
And if you take a look at that UCLA schedule, you mentioned, Will, they're 0-4. This weekend, they have Penn State. After that, they go to East Lansing and play Michigan State. Then they have Maryland, who we've already talked about how well the Terps are playing. Then they have Indiana. Then it's Nebraska. After that, Ohio State. Next, Washington. After that, they finish the year against USC. We're looking at a real possibility, Will, and I hate to say this because we're not necessarily a negative program, but 0-12 looks almost likely for UCLA at this point.
Well, here's the good news. The next coach can only get better.
That's right.
Right?
That's true.
So that's a wrap for our show for this week. We always appreciate everybody tuning in. And we should also note that you can find us wherever you find your podcast, like SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple. And make sure to check us out and hit subscribe. As always, thanks to the Big Ten Network. The Sports Life is produced by Dalton Shetler. Our executive producer is Wendy Hart. So on behalf of Dalton Shetler, I'm Will Teeman, and thanks for your time.